Ladies and gentlemen, we started this edition of This Is Exclusive with regards to the impeachment process that was underway in South Korea. In fact, the current president has survived the impeachment proceedings. This after there was an understanding with the opposition party, the PPP. In fact, you've had the members of the opposition walking out, enabling the president to continue, despite growing chorus essentially taking place in Seoul, calling for the impeachment of President Yoon. Let's first take you through the latest images now coming in from the capital in Seoul, where there was protests that were taking place outside the parliament. In fact, what you see right now is there was an attempt that was essentially made to heighten the situation or perhaps escalate this after a martial law that was brought in by the president. In fact, what you see right now is that this was immediately after the martial law was brought in, and thereafter you've had the military to move in. But having said that, there was a demand to impeach the president. Now, there is an understanding that was basically made with the opposition parties by the president, which has basically allowed him to continue. But having said that, the situation being the way it is right now, it perhaps is becoming untenable for the president to continue in his current position. So what does this essentially mean for the fragility of the South Korean democracy? Because in the past too, remember, a situation like this has come up. So will the president be able to survive this? And how did it all start? With the fact that there was a move that was essentially made by South Korea as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned, where you've had the South Koreans basically indicating that they would like to empower the Ukrainians by providing them weaponry. This was as a response to the presence of North Korean troops on Russian soil. The trigger point essentially being one of them, but that thereafter changed. First, take a look at this detailed report explaining what's the current situation like right now in Asia's fourth largest economy and what exactly is the repercussion like. We'll go to our reporters on the ground giving you a sense of what's really happening in Seoul. But first, take a look at this report.
The South Korean President Yoon Yeol is embroiled in a significant political crisis. This comes after his controversial decision to declare martial law earlier this week.
친애하는 국민 여러분, 저는 북한 공산 세력의 위협으로부터 자유 대한민국을 수호하고 우리 국민의 자유와 행복을 약탈하고 있는 파렴치한 종북 반국가 세력들을 일거에 척결하고 자유 헌정 질서를 지키기 위해 비상계엄을 선포합니다.
Even though he apologized for his decision,
이번 비상계엄 선포는 국정 최종 책임자인 대통령으로서의 절박함에서 비롯되었습니다. 하지만 그 과정에서 국민들께 불안과 불편을 끼쳐드렸습니다. 매우 송구스럽게 생각하며 많이 놀라셨을 국민 여러분께 진심으로 사과드립니다.
the opposition has come out all guns blazing on the South Korean president.
사실 이번 계엄의 더 큰 위험성은 이 불복 계엄을 했다는 사실이 아니라 대체 아무도 이해할 수 없는 이런 계엄 결정을 내리는 대통령의 정신 상태에 있습니다.
While the ruling party maintains that an early resignation remains unavoidable.
대통령의 정상적인 직무 수행은 불가능한 상황이고 대통령의 조기 퇴진은 불가피합니다.
As South Korea spirals into a fresh political crisis, all eyes on what's yet to unfold in South Korea's political trajectory.
Well, let me first go across to Vincent, who's joining us from Seoul right now. Vincent, how did the South Korean president really avoid this entire impeachment, given the fact that the opposition was also up in arms for the impeachment of the current president? Was there some sort of an understanding that the president has had with the opposition, particularly with the PPP?
Well, yes, it was quite interesting to observe, because at first we were all a bit scared, I must say, since I've lived here now for over one semester. when the message came that the martial law was instated again, we were actually quite scared. And also many Koreans actually made plans to go back home to their actual home, not like the home of the university. And so the situation was quite severe. Then luckily the martial law, oh, I'm sorry, it's a bit busy here. The martial law was nullified, which made things feel safe again. And then of course the impeachment was about to come, but the president seems to have maintained an image where it enabled him to successfully, or at least until now, maintain his position and dodge this danger for him. Yeah.
Vincent, I'll just request you if you can just flip your camera and perhaps give us a sense of what's the situation like on the ground, because there were large-scale protests that were taking place. In fact, even when the impeachment process began, we were given to understand that outside of the parliament area, there were large-scale protests because people were unhappy with this entire process continuing. So give us a sense of what's really happening on the ground like. What is it like right now?
Mm-hmm. So, for example, at Yeol Park today, actually, there was quite a big protest, and it's a lot of people being on the streets and protesting. Me, as an international, I try to avoid this crowd because it's still quite dangerous and people could get looked into, and I really didn't want to have too much problems with that. Where I am right now is Apgujeong Rodeo, where life seems to be going on as usual. So here you cannot really feel all the things going on there with the president. But I can assure you, also at the universities and also at Yeol Park, there are protests going on, and it's actually, quite big, severe. So people are talking about it, and it's a big subject here to talk about. Yeah.
Vincent, as I understand, there would be a number of international students who are also present there. Could you give us a sense of the anger among the people in Seoul, and why is it directed to the current president? How exactly did it all start?
I mean, obviously, as international, sorry, there's a crowd from here. As an international students and students, we are, of course, not native to this problem, but obviously there was the big martial law incident 70 years ago, where also the martial law got instated and many people died. It was actually pretty bad, and I think also the last president died. So people were scared here. For us internationals, since we don't really, we know what happened to that issue, but we don't really know the effects of it. We just get told to stay away from everything. Also, like from my university, for example, the manager even contacted us immediately after the martial law was instated and told us a warning that we shouldn't go on the streets. We shouldn't join protests too early, since we could get arrested, because the martial law gives that opportunity to people to just get arrested without a warrant. So as international students, we try to stay away. But the Korean people themselves, of course, they are angry at the president that he did this thing that happened that was the cause of this much trouble 70 years ago. And so they were actually mad at him, and they say that the president is, stupid is their word. Because the thing that happened 70 years ago is just way too dangerous to happen again. So people are mad at the president,
Vincent, what's the situation like right now, in the sense that now that the martial law has essentially been overturned, the president, however, remains in power at this point in time with some sort of an understanding with the opposition parties. Has the situation been brought under control in those very parts where the protests were actually taking place?
So I just know that when I arrived here, that protests were taking place. I don't know exactly if the protests are over now or if people are still standing there. Since it was a huge crowd, there might be still some people over there. But also I heard people say that about the president, that this might have consequences, that this impeachment was nullified. There might be consequences for the party or the president himself. It's really uncertain right now, since that message is very young. Right now, me personally, being here away from the protest, I haven't really felt the direct effects of this message. But there might be things coming up in the near future. Maybe against the political party, since they are the minority actually in the parliament. Or against the president. But right now it's a bit uncertain. People are still mad at him, and we will see how things play out. We have to see it in the coming days.
Vincent, one last question, because I'm presuming that you are also in touch with the locals there, the Koreans. And how exactly are they really responding? What's the approval ratings like of the current president? And does this essentially mean that in the days to come, it's going to be even more vulnerable, given the fact that the protests are unlikely? To go by your account, it's unlikely that it's going to die down anytime soon.
So the one thing I can assure you is people say that this president is stupid and crazy. They also go back to the fact that this was a former prosecutor and not a real politician. So they say he's actually, stupid for enforcing this martial law. It's obvious that many people don't really, respect him that much anymore, even less after this event. But since he survived this impeachment until now, I believe that even though protests may go on, it may continue like this for now. There will be future votes where we will see how the effects of this message will play out. But until now, all I can just say is that people don't really like, of course, that we instated the martial law, and they don't respect him as much anymore. And we have to see how that plays out in the future. It's just that, they don't like him that much anymore.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for getting us that report from Seoul. As the situation still remains quite volatile, we will be closely monitoring the situation on the ground, as this has got an immediate repercussion in the area, in the subcontinent too.